You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There is a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for Tuesday, April 9th, 2024. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where it got suddenly really dark yesterday, and no one seems to know why. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal. There's no explanation for that, Blue Gal.
Everybody knows why.
Tide goes in, tide goes out. There's no way to know how that works. What happened?
Also, on a related issue, Happy Confederate Surrender Day to all who celebrate.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Confederate Surrender Day. It's one of the great national holidays that we don't, take off the day from work and put our people to talk about.
And Lincoln didn't put up with any shit after they surrendered either.
No.
We're going to surrender, but we want to keep our slaves, okay?
No. Slavery's over.
Yep.
It's over now. That's all over.
Yep.
Damn you.
Yeah. As we have mentioned on previous podcasts, our Tuesday episodes, which, we've been doing No Fair Remembering stuff since Science Fiction Universities, or maybe we should have called them No Fear of Remembering stuff. And they are taking on a slightly different shape during this election cycle, since every week is now this fire hose of crazy.
Yeah.
And we're pretty much calling it the whatever we want. Gosh.
Yeah. Next week, who knows? Might be a knitting podcast, might be cats for 2 hours. You don't know.
No, it's going to be news, or it's going to be a show we've watched that we want to recommend, or it's going to be what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
And today, we want to talk about the right, Republicans, and abortion.
Yeah, this was the week that Donald Trump truly became a typical Republican politician, right down to his shoes, because this was the week when Donald Trump went full Jeb exclamation point.
I remember Jeb exclamation point.
Jeb exclamation point? Please clap. And everyone at this point should know you never go full Jeb exclamation point. You just don't do it. But to understand what that means, we have to talk about stuff in the past that we remember, the No Fair Remembering stuff part of this podcast, about the origins of the modern Republican Party, what motivates the base and what voices those people listen to. So this is sort of 790 episodes of The Professional Left compressed into pill form for easy swallowing.
And this episode might be the one to recommend to your friends as a primer.
Well, we
think of Republicans.
We're only 3 minutes into it, Blue Gals. Let's not, let's not pat ourselves. Let's not do reach arounds just yet about how good this podcast is.
I thought the rehearsal of the show went really well.
Yeah.
So first of all, we have to just establish this fact. The Republican Party is the base.
Right.
Which is unlike the Democratic Party, which is many bases. But the Republican Party is the base. For a moment, forget about the GOP's fascist billionaire funders and all the Candace Owens type grifters and the deeply broken clowns like Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham. You can even take away Trump, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And you still have the roughly 60 million bigots and imbeciles, deplorables, that make up the party's base.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump and Matt Gaetz and Mike Johnson didn't invent the Republican base. It was the other way around. The base manifested. Monsters like Trump and Gaetz and Johnson and Green and Scott and DeSantis and on and on and on.
Yeah. So, leads to the question, what does the base want more than anything else? What do they want? The answer is really simple. They want to make Democrats cry and suffer. They want to inflict pain on the left. The more, the better. They want to punch hippies all day long. Now, you and I remember, I'm not sure everyone here does, but you and I remember Gene Schmidt, Mean Gene Schmidt, back in 2012, during the before time, when everyone was so nice and got along and nobody ever argued about anything. We remember her creaming herself at the thought that the Supreme Court had killed Obamacare. She was shouting. There were tears of joy. And this is from a reputable area blog called Crooks and Liars. From June 29th of 2012, quote, Ohio Representative Jean Schmidt, or Mean Jean, as she's referred to by many Democrats due to her infamous angry tirades on the House floor, found herself caught in the preliminary confusion over the Supreme Court's ruling on healthcare reform. Crooks and liars came across cell phone video footage posted on YouTube of Schmidt standing outside the court as news of the ruling was apparently being passed to her via cell phone. Her reaction reminded me of a famous restaurant scene with Meg Ryan in the comedy When Harry Met Sally. Yes. And what else? Thank God. Schmidt shouts into her cell phone, under the belief that the Supreme Court had struck down the law. Schmidt's phone source had apparently tuned to either Fox or News or CNN, as the two networks led initial confusion over the ruling by reporting that the High Court had struck down Barack Obama's Affordable Care Act, unquote. So why was Mean Jean Schmidt ecstatic, really ecstatic at the thought of millions of people, including you and me, Blue Gal, and our entire family, losing our health insurance? Why did that make her so goddamn happy? Because, like other Republicans, they hate us, Blue Gal. They hate us. She hated Barack Obama. She hated Democrats, and she wanted to see us lose at any price. It didn't matter. Millions of people lose their health care. Good. That's stick it to them. Fuck the Democrats. It's not really much more complicated than that. Hating us is what defines them, which is why in 2016, this was the greatest high ever experienced by the Republican base. And it's why they're so frantic to get that feeling back. As the election of Donald Trump proved once and for all, the base does not care at all about all those things that the party leadership has been pushing for 40 years. Also, they don't care about austerity or balanced budgets or tax cuts, all of which was sold with this kind of smirking, holier than thou, we just care about the country so much we have to kick millions of people off of welfare attitude. The base cares nothing about those things. They care about pissing on the people they hate. And that's you and me. That's women. That's minorities. That's immigrants. That's non-Christians. Basically anyone who doesn't love Donald Trump.
At the moment, that's what it is, because Donald Trump exemplifies who they love.
He's the focus of all of their rage and paranoia and racism.
And they keep plugging Donald Trump back in to get that high again.
Right. Got to get that high.
Of the win, the surprise win in 2016 is the high that they keep pursuing, not realizing that Trump is a loser. And he won by accident. But let's get back to them hating us, because why do they hate us so much? Because they believe that we are personally responsible for every bad thing that has ever happened to them. It's all one vast Soros-funded conspiracy. And where does this belief come from? Well, if you've tuned into the right-wing ecosphere for 5 minutes, you know there is a constant stream. We are the terrorist-loving, America-hating scum. We're godless commies, soy boy cucks, feminazis, race traitors, trans lovers, everything that makes them feel angry or nauseous or left out of good things. It's our fault.
That's us. We're to blame.
And we're to blame for it. And why do they believe this? Because these are the slanders that conservative media has been repeating to them over and over and over again for more than 30 years. They could change the channel, but they don't. And the worst lie of them all, and the ugliest lie, is that somehow, Driftglass, you and I are baby-killing monsters.
Yeah, we hate babies and we want to kill.
We hate babies. I can't even say that with a straight face, because we hate babies, and and we're monsters who hate babies and kill babies.
Right.
Now, here is Trump just this week demonizing Democrats in this most terrible and unprecedented way.
Anyone who has watched this videotape, I dare Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama to watch these tapes. Watch a fully formed fetus on the table, its heart beating, its legs kicking, while someone says we have to keep it alive to harvest its brain. This is about the character of our nation. And if we will not stand up and force President Obama to veto this bill, shame on us.
Oops, very sorry. That was not Trump. That was Carly Fiorina. Remember Carly Fiorina, Blue Gal?
Yeah.
That was her demonizing Democrats and Planned Parenthood during the Republican presidential debates in 2015. This is Trump just this week.
But there's something in particular that I want to speak to this morning and that my colleague, Congresswoman Wagner, wants to speak to. And that's to make sure that every American understands what today's Democrat Party stands for with respect to babies and with respect to the murder of babies. We have seen now in states across the country the introduction of legislation that would enable the killing of babies. This is not about abortion. This is about killing babies after they are born.
Oops, sorry again. That was hero of the resistance, Liz Cheney, talking about today's Democrat Party in 2019. But this is definitely Trump from this week.
Jews were accused of being in league with the devil and of engaging in evil practices, such as the charge that they kill Christian children to use their blood in rituals, the so-called blood libel.
Oh, man, we are so sorry. We screwed this up again. We suck at this, Blue Gal. We're not professional left at all.
Let's hire a sound editor, for gosh sakes.
We got to get some professional people in here because that wasn't Trump. That was a historian recounting the blood libel, which violently anti-Semitic Christians had used to justify oppressing and murdering Jews for hundreds of years, from the Middle Ages right through Nazi Germany. But this, I think we finally got it. This really is Trump just this week.
Yes, this really is Trump.
It must be remembered that the Democrats are the radical ones on this position because they support abortion up to and even beyond the 9th month. The concept of having an abortion in the later months and even execution after birth, and that's exactly what it is. The baby is born, the baby is executed after birth, is unacceptable, and almost everyone agrees with that.
And just for good measure, this really is Trump 6 months ago talking about blood and disease and immigration.
Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country. It's so bad, and people are coming in with disease. People are coming in with every possible thing that you can have.
Because infanticide and pestilence are two of humanity's most ancient fears. It goes all the way back to when we were barely out of the caves. And that's because they both carry with them the threat of extinction. We know to be instinctively terrified of those things, which is why they're also two of the most potent raw nerve endings that fascists always lean on when they're trying to convince their followers to do something terrible. Not just when they'll lose an election or something like that, but that there's a secret plan by their opponents, that'd be us, to wipe them out and replace them.
The base genuinely believes this horrible genocidal garbage, which is why 2016 was so magical for them. The greatest moment of their lives, because in Trump, they saw their authentic selves. And with Trump, they were given permission to finally be their authentic selves in public.
Mm-hmm.
They could scream at reporters. They could threaten media outlets. They could swear at anyone who wasn't with the campaign at rallies.
They could beat people up.
Trump would tell them, go ahead and punch their lights out and I'll pay for your attorneys. Trump was the first politician also who wasn't ashamed of them. They could fly Confederate flags. He didn't try to pretend they didn't exist, and he didn't treat them like a redheaded stepchild. Instead, they were encouraged to say out loud all the crazy, hateful, racist shit that they had been fed at Breitbart and hate radio. But that party elites and office holders, frankly, had always been careful to keep at arm's length. For our entire adult lives, there have been at least two distinct Republican parties. There was the outward-facing, respectable party of Jeb Bush, Mitt Romney, David Brooks, and George Will. This is the party that ran an ongoing puppet show about conservative morality and how moral they are and, fiscal discipline.
Yeah, balanced budgets. Mm-hmm.
And the audience for that was the normies and the media.
Right.
This was the Republican Party that, face it, was always on the Sunday shows.
Every week. Every
Right?
show. All
Asa
time.
Hutchinson,
Right. All the time.
And it also dominated the op-ed pages of America's biggest newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
Well-educated white men talking about fiscal responsibility.
Mm-hmm. And when things went horribly wrong, it was always both sides who were to blame.
Both sides.
Always something. Yeah.
But then there was this other Republican Party glued to Rush Limbaugh all week.
Yeah.
The party of the Republican base, the real Republican Party, talking about feminazis all the time.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 90% of the Republican Party that we liberals out here in the real world see every day and have been writing about and warning about since the dawn of the liberal blogosphere. We see them at the grocery store. We see them at the doctor's office wearing MAGA hats.
Mm-hmm.
The Republican Party that idolized Limbaugh and Beck and O'Reilly, that never read the Weekly Standard. Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, the Weekly Standard, as I recall, the Weekly Standard only ever had 50,000 subscribers and always operated at a loss. It was a loss leader to create a tiny cohort of outwardly facing respectable Republicans that could go on Meet the Press and pretend the Republican Party was something else than it was. Yeah.
But the Republican base never missed Breitbart and called the New York Times the Jew York Times. And the party of right-wing evangelicals like Falwell and Robertson might have had a little nicer vocabulary.
I don't know.
But they were just as hateful.
After 9/11, who was they blaming for 9/11?
They were Democrats.
Lesbians and the ACLU. Yeah. Automatically.
This was the base of the party that the outward-facing, respectable members of the party elite, especially, Republican senators are what we're talking about here, just flat out refused to publicly acknowledge even existed. David Brooks said, I don't know about Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
I don't know what he says.
No, who knows? Who knows what's going on over there? No one knows what's going on. Yeah, don't worry about it. It's a fringe. It's just a fringe.
Yeah. But every one of their elections depended on that group of voters.
And everybody knew it. Nobody talked about it. Except the goddamn liberals, but everybody knew it.
I mean, and they did acknowledge it in the House. They gave Rush Limbaugh a plaque.
Yeah. Parade, plaque, called him the majority maker. Even the New York Times, 1994, published a whole article about how Rush Limbaugh was being feted by the Republican Party as the guy, and the right-wing radio was the guy who swept them to power. He was the man who did it. But all of that mostly happened out of sight, out of mind. We can all pretend this isn't happening because it isn't happening because David Brooks says it's not happening. Jordan Will isn't talking about it. And then down the escalator came Donald Trump. He was the Lonesome Roads they had always been waiting for. And if you don't know who Lonesome Roads is, go rent or stream A Face in the Crowd with Andy Griffith. Yes, Mayberry's favorite sheriff plays one of the most despicable, relatable, and most directly transferable villain to Donald Trump that you will ever see in movies. He understands the mob. He understands the crowd. He understands media. And he's just a hillbilly, but he knows how to make those people jump. And he is on the verge of becoming the most powerful man in America. And that was the man they were waiting for. They were waiting for someone to be that guy. Where the respectable party of Bush and Romney and Brooks and Will kept them at arm's length, Trump embraced them. He told them they were beautiful and he loved them, and they embraced him right back. They clenched, and they've never been apart since. They made him the avatar for all of their rage and paranoia and racism and grievance. And with a lot of help from people like James Comey and outfits like the mainstream media, in 2016, he won.
And Russians and Facebook, too. Yeah.
Oh, it took a convergence of people arguing in bad faith and lying and pursuing their career goals instead of democracy. A lot like's happening right now.
Yep.
And the base got their dearest wish. They got their wish. The streets did, in fact, run waist deep with liberal tears, and a lot of them were ours, which is why the election of 2016 was the greatest moment in the lives of the Republican base. In case you've forgotten, this is Omarosa Manigault. Remember Omarosa, Blue Gal? This is from a Frontline PBS documentary that aired September of 2016, just before the election. Quote, every critic, every detractor will have to bow down to President Trump. It's everyone who's ever doubted Donald, whoever disagreed, whoever challenged him. It is the ultimate revenge to become the most powerful man in the universe. Unquote.
And that's that threat.
Yeah.
right?
I'm gonna break everyone. I'm gonna drive them to their knees, and the mob will cheer me for doing that.
We found a wonderful clip of Fran talking about Trump supporters to an Australian reporter. And this is just from February of this year.
Do you think that the Democrats, you talk about the Democrats a lot, do you think that the Democrats have learnt anything about those people that Hillary Clinton called the deplorables?
I think that it's very hard for people who are reasonable to understand these Republicans. So I always say to people, it's very easy. First of all, they're not Republicans. They're anarchists. I know the left in the United States, a lot of them pride themselves on being anarchists, but they're not. The Republicans are anarchists. They're destroyers of government, destroyers of democracy. So Democrats are always trying to analyze them. Why do they think this? Why do they think that? And I said, a 6-year-old could tell you what's wrong with these people. They are mean and they are stupid. And it's as simple as that. They pride themselves on their stupidity, their ignorance, and their meanness. They're really mean. The things that they want to do, like, let's not give any food. We have something in the United States called food stamps, which is if you don't make enough money to buy food, the government can give you these stamps, which you can use to buy food. This is something they're very much against, and at the same time that they're very much proclaiming their Christianity, which is, I always say, look, I'm not an expert in Jesus, okay, but I feel like food stamps, Jesus might have had that idea himself, so they're very mean and they're really stupid and they're very proud of their ignorance.
So they're stupid and they're mean, but that's what Trump promised them, that they didn't have to be ashamed of being stupid and mean.
Mm-hmm.
And he was promising not unity and progress, which is what most presidential candidates promise.
Mm-hmm.
He promised to his base that he would annihilate their enemies, bringing the hated left to their bottomless pit of lowness, making them bow down. Lots of people had promised to make the left pay for being godless commie baby killers, but under Trump, it was all going to come true.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't coming true as some kind of shameful secret that could only be whispered about. They were finally free. They could shout their madness from the rooftops, and who was going to stop them? Then came the ramming through of conservative judges, 3 of whom pretty clearly committed perjury, to win appointments to the Supreme Court. And then, as promised, down came Roe.
Mm-hmm.
It was everything they had ever dreamed of.
Yeah, man.
Again, people cried. Liberals cried because there's no more Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
Yay.
And it was, I've never had that in my life happen to me, except marrying my beautiful wife, of course. I've never had all my dearest dreams come true all on a single day. But they got everything they'd ever wished for. Everything they'd ever wished for came true. However, there's a certain political gravity that still operates in this country. And some of you might be familiar with this thing I write about called the tribe that rubs shit in their hair. And this is me on my blog from the before time. Remember, back when we were all civilized, we all got along, of 2014. Quote, "The tribe that rubs shit in their hair is my shorthand for inbred conservative meat sticks who've wallowed in wingnut hate radio, racist dung, and Fox News liberal conspiracy claptrap for so long that it has become the quotidian argot of their wretched lives. It is their tavern talk, their worst paranoid delusions, externalized, validated, tarted up as the unvarnished truth, and then regurgitated back to them by ghouls and treasonmongers like Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly, which are in turn passed around like so many fish stories, getting bigger and wilder and truthier with each iteration. It is the shit they eagerly rub in their hair. The shit which, year after year, is sculpted into ever more elaborate pompadours because everyone else in their dingy, lightless corner of the universe is doing it, and they lost their sense of smell about 40 years ago. They preen over each other. They're happy in each other's company. They praise each other on the little individual touches with which they've customized their shit heap toupees, an extra layer of Benghazi, perhaps, applique over something, the new Black Panther Party, because Acorn. All is right with the world, right up until they have to leave the cocoon of their wingnut pigsty and step into the normal world, where they are shocked that ordinary people flee from them in horror, unquote. That's what happened after Trump fulfilled the white nationalist evangelicals' fondest dreams. A very big, very ongoing, fucked around and found out moment. Suddenly, Democrats were winning in places that, according to Republican dogma, they had no business winning. And they were winning by running on, oh my God, running on abortion. Once again, the MAGA zombies were completely shocked that ordinary people were fleeing from them in horror.
But as unfortunate as that was, did it really matter?
No.
If Republicans lose a few elections, so what? After all, the important thing is that Roe had been struck down and godless commie liberal baby killers had been terrorized and reduced to tears. We're still winning.
Right.
Except here's the deal. And this brings us right to this week's news.
Yeah.
There is one person who cares very deeply about whether or not Republicans win or lose one very specific election. And that person is Donald Trump, and that election is the 2024 presidential election, because if he wins, he can pick right up where he left off, but 1,000 times worse and more sadistic and vengeful. And as president, he can terminate most of the court cases against him and ignore the others behind a cordon of armed Praetorian guards.
Mm-hmm.
And he can delay the trials forever because he's president.
Well, we talked about this, I think it was on the broadcast.
Uh-huh.
Well, what about the state trials and the people who were, trying him at the state, and the J6 said he'll send them to the army.
Yeah.
Don't you know how fascism works? He'll send the National Guard in and force them to release his hostages.
Mm-hmm.
That's you think the guardrails at the state level are going to stop a federalized fascist state run by Donald Trump? Are you
right?
Have you not studied anything? Have you not read history? Anyway, but
here's the deal. If he loses this election, he knows that he could very well die broke. I mean, he's seen it happen to Rudy Giuliani.
Yeah.
Rudy is broke now. And he could also go to prison. There is a possibility that he could get put in home confinement with no phone.
Mm-hmm. For the rest of his life.
For the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for the treasonous way he handled state secrets.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, winning this election really, really matters to him in a way that I don't think it did 6 months ago. And it's for reasons of personal survival.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why this week he infuriated his most zealous supporters by, as you said earlier, going full Jeb exclamation point. He became a Republican politician trying to straddle a fence.
Right. Instead of the reactionary leader of a revolution, he became just another political hack.
Yep. Instead of beaming with pride at this mob of bigots and imbeciles and leading the parade, he told them to cool it. They don't want to cool it.
Oh.
And he did this in typical Trumpian double talk. This is from ABC News. Quote, "At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart in many cases, your religion or your faith," Trump said. "Do what's right for your family and do what's right for yourself. Do what's right for your children. Do what's right for our country. And vote. So important to vote." Now, he was saying it didn't matter. I have all the votes I need.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
6 months ago.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's all about the will of the people. Trump ended his message by sharing the key point that seemed to be the basis for his position. This is how Republicans will be able to win elections. You must follow your heart on this issue, but remember, you must also win elections to restore our culture and, in fact, to save our country, which is currently and very sadly a nation in decline. And that just made me laugh.
Yeah.
Because compared to the rest of the world, we're doing so fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Always go by your heart, but we must win. We have to win. We are a failing nation, he said, unquote. What the hell is he talking about?
Yeah, it's gibberish, but it's a different kind of gibberish. It's like once his coup didn't work and his family or somebody basically forced him to go on the air.
Yeah.
I love you.
Ivanka.
Go home.
Yeah, forced him.
I love you all. You're beautiful people. It was a great day, but you should go home. But I love you and thank you and hang my pence. But it's that kind of, he hates being in this position. He hates having to actually equivocate about something. He wants to have clear, declarative, insane statements. So This is what he was talking about. This is back to ABC News. Quote, after months of dodging questions about his abortion position, former President Donald Trump rejected calls to endorse a national abortion ban. Saying he believes it should be a states' rights issue, though he declined to say a specific number of weeks bans should be set at. This is him talking now. My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, which is absolutely not true. That's utter bullshit. This is not where everybody wants it. But remember, always remember, when you're listening to Donald Trump, he lies all the time about everything, casually, doesn't even think about it. Back to Trump. The states will determine by vote or legislation, or perhaps both. And whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Trump said Monday in a video message posted to his shitty social media site, Truth Social. Many states will be different. Many will have different numbers of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be, unquote. Gibberish. And what this reminded me of more than anything else was the time that I thought Chris Matthews did a pretty good job. This was back in March of 2016, when Trump was desperate, throwing all the double talk he could to try to weasel his way out of answering very simple questions from Chris Matthews about what the law should be when it came to abortion. And Trump really didn't want to answer that question. He wanted to make it about everything but Roe versus Wade. He threw everything at Chris Matthews. He kept trying to throw it back to Matthews and Catholicism. Well, what does your church say, Chris? What about sin? What about your church? And Matthews kept pushing back, saying, I believe in the moral teachings of my church, but my church can't put people in prison. The government can put people in prison. You're running to lead the government. So what is your position? Well, many people have many different positions. It's very complicated. No. What's your position? What's your position? And it was like the devil trying to avoid a holy water enema. It was just, it didn't stop him. He still got elected, but it was so clear that he had never thought about this at all. He just started saying shit that evangelicals wanted to hear. And nobody ever asked him, well, what should the law be if we're going to get rid of the law we have? And he didn't think about it at all. And 8 years, almost to the day, Trump found himself right back where he didn't want to be. Because you know what, Blue Gal? I thought abortion was murder. And if Trump doesn't favor a nationwide ban, doesn't that mean he's cool with murder on a state-by-state basis? He's okay with that? Is that what he's saying? Letting godless, baby-killing monsters in California and New York and here in Illinois do whatever they want willy-nilly? Doesn't matter. Abortion up into the 9th month or abortion up to the 3rd year? Who knows? Whatever states want to do is fine with him. But if he's in favor of a nationwide ban, well, there goes the election, and here comes prison and poverty, right?
Yeah.
Because Trump is always most comfortable and happiest when he can attack someone, can beat up someone and call them names and make them feel small and stupid. He tried to react to all of this by attacking Lindsey Graham, which he just loves doing. He keeps Lindsey around like a dog he likes to kick every now and then. This is straight up from yesterday from his crappy social media site, talking about Lindsey Graham. And I'll read the whole thing. Excuse me. Senator Lindsey Graham to spend more time focusing on all the many people being killed because of our now non-existent border and the millions of people dying in senseless, never-ending wars that he constantly favors and promotes, and should spend less time taking away our great, capital G, Roe v. Wade victory, capital V, of sending a complicated and controversial issue back to the states where, according to highly respected legal scholars, all capital letters on both sides, which is bullshit, there's nobody on both sides that agrees with them, it belongs. The Democrats are thrilled with Lindsey. No, we're thrilled with you, Donald, because you are hanging yourself and we're enjoying the sight of it. Democrats are thrilled with Lindsey because they want this issue to simmer for as long a period of time as possible. They're destroying our country, and they don't want to talk about the inflation, a bad economy, the horrible open border, and here we go, rigged elections, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Russia, or the attack on Israel, all of which would never happen if I were president. Great job, Lindsey. Unquote.
And as you said, Driftglass, Donald Trump lies all the time.
All the time. All the time.
Like he breathes.
Yeah.
And the Biden campaign just immediately came out and said every word of this was a lie.
It's all a lie. It's all a lie. Yep.
And so here comes Joe Biden, whose campaign ad creators clearly listen to this podcast because I told them to make this ad. I on this podcast. I literally did. In their latest ad entitled Willow's Box, a blonde white woman and her husband sit on a couch and go through a box of baby things. But their baby didn't make it. And the mother almost didn't make it as well. She had a life-threatening and fertility-threatening infection after she was denied an abortion following a miscarriage. And she almost died.
Mm-hmm.
Only because she lives in Texas. That's the only reason. She lives in a state that has outlawed abortion. And as the video description from the Biden campaign notes, quote, "This is a painful story that so many families around America now know too well. Amanda, the mother, was denied the medical care she needed, and it nearly took her life. More than 1 in 3 women in America now live under an abortion ban, with more on the way. Donald Trump did this," unquote.
Bang.
And we just got another reminder of what happens when you leave it to the states this morning.
Yes, we did.
As the Arizona Supreme Court said, oh, that law from the 1800s that bans all abortion except in the case of life of the mother, yeah, we're going with that. And even Carrie Lake came out against it. This is how bad it is for Republicans.
Fight, 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 fight.
Well, and I said everyone was shocked at Crooks and Liars on the team that by this happening. I said it is great news for Ruben Gallego and for Biden.
Yeah, it is.
Because abortion is on the ballot. Literally, abortion rights are on a ballot measure in Arizona in November. They're on a ballot measure in Florida in November. I think that's really what got Trump spooked and why he had to come out with something. Because if he loses Florida, it's over.
Yeah.
But ending the ad with Donald Trump did this. And by this, they mean Trump and his abortion policies not only almost killed this woman, but more to the point of the ad, they made that nice white mother cry.
Mm-hmm.
Because the abortion issue on the right has always centered on sentimentality about white babies.
Mm-hmm.
And this Biden ad turns that sentimentality on its head. A white blonde Texas mother crying about her dead baby. You can't get more sentimental than that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a painful ad to watch.
It is.
Her pain is very real.
Mm-hmm.
And the words Donald Trump did this. There is no argument to be made about she deserved it or she's a slut or all the other misogynistic bullshit that comes from blaming pregnant women for their condition. This Texas blonde white woman, this is what I have said to do.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, she wanted this conceived in wedlock white baby. And Donald Trump made her risk her life and is responsible for the complications she faced because she lost that baby and had an infection and couldn't get medical care in America because of the state she lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the loss that she faced is Donald Trump's fault, and he made her cry. Now, P.S., they're also coming for birth control and IVF because controlling women is what these judges want.
These evangelical right-wing judges, all about controlling women's bodies. Got to control women's bodies. And so, as we talked about at the very beginning of this podcast, the two worst, the most ancient threats to us as mammals are pestilence, disease, and infanticide.
Mm-hmm.
And Trump called immigrants diseased people, disease carriers who are poisoning the blood of the country. It's always about the blood.
Mm-hmm.
And Democrats want to murder babies. Nope, not at all. Donald Trump and Republicans are the ones who nearly killed this woman by refusing to give her basic medical care that she deserves as a citizen of the United States. That's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Trump did this, and he did it on purpose. He did it because he's a monster. And Republicans who vote for him and support him are fucking monsters.
And just as another PS, at Crooks and Liars, we're doing a series now called 4 Years Ago Today and going through our archives, which are searchable by date, by the way, and finding out what Trump was doing 4 years ago today. And I wrote up today's. Today, Donald Trump was telling everybody to take zinc Take some zinc to keep COVID away. It'll help.
It'll help.
Along with the hydrochloroquine, what have you got to lose?
What have you got to lose? Come on, vote for me. What do you got to lose?
So the plague that came, he was completely not only ineffective, but harmful. And the, infanticide part of it, he practically killed this blonde white mother from Texas.
Right.
And he made her cry.
Mm-hmm. Just keep running that ad, Joe.
Yeah.
Just keep running that ad.
Yeah.
Every state. And there's 100 more. There's 100 more stories just like
There's 100 more women to film.
And and these are personal stories, and exploiting people's personal stories for political gain. 99 times out of 100 is pretty shady.
In poor taste, yes.
This really is fighting to get rights back to people who had rights taken from them by Republicans.
Bodily autonomy.
This is a fight.
And medical care.
Yeah.
To save your life.
Now comes the most awkward transition in this podcast.
Yeah.
So just don't get upset as I grind my gears trying to shift from topic to topic. Please support this show by becoming a monthly Patreon at patreon.com/ProLeftPod. And thank you for doing that. And we'll see you next time. And we have a special guest to take us out this week. This is George Carlin from 1996, because this has been going on for a goddamn long time. George Carlin, please take us out.
And we'll see you next time.
Boy, these conservatives are really something, aren't they? They're all in favor of the unborn. They will do anything for the unborn. But once you're born, you're on your own. Pro-life conservatives are obsessed with the fetus from conception to 9 months. After that, they don't want to know about you. They don't want to hear from you. No, nothing. No neonatal care, no daycare, no Head Start, no school lunch, no food stamps, no welfare, no nothing. If you're pre-born, you're fine. If you're preschool, you're They're not pro-life. You know what they are? They're anti-woman. Simple as it gets. Anti-woman. They don't like them.
Let's think about living. Think about living. Let's think about loving. Think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2024-25, GGBG Productions.